Hey guys, it's a stick figure historian. So, we're starting a new topic in our England series today. And this time, our story begins in Scotland. And I know you're probably thinking, wait, you just said this is the England series. But just give me a chance and it'll all make sense in a minute. Since the two countries are right next to each other, their stories often overlap. On a fall day of 1600, inside the grand walls of Dunfermline Palace, a boy was born. Charles, his mother named him, a name never given to any British prince before. And yes, Charles was a prince. His parents were James VI and Anne, King and Queen of Scotland. Our story moves to England when the little prince was just 2 years old, with the death of Queen Elizabeth of England. The very same day of her death, King James VI of Scotland was also proclaimed King James I of England. But why was a Scottish king chosen to be the next English king? Well, you see, Elizabeth had no children, nor any siblings to take the throne after her. The next closest relative, then, was her cousin, James VI of Scotland. And the thing was also helped along by several English nobles who wished him to be their king. Robert Cecil, the Earl of Salisbury in particular, had actually been sending letters back and forth with James for almost 2 years before the Queen's death, planning for his succession to the throne. When the news reached Scotland of Elizabeth's passing, James VI left his native land, only to return once ever again in his life. But Charles did not join his father and mother in their journey south. He was a very sickly child, and not fit at all for traveling. He was left behind in the care of a Scottish nobleman. It wasn't until he was 3 that he came to England. And no, even then, he still did not join his parents. He was brought up in the house of an English nobleman now. This seems really strange to us, but it was often this way with royal children. Besides, Charles was only the second son of the king, so nobody paid as much attention to him as his older brother, Prince Henry. Henry was the heir of the kingdom, and really just more princely overall than his younger brother was. He was strong, smart, and spoke well, while Charles was small, sickly, and talked with a bit of a stammer. Charles lived his life in the background. Perhaps that's why he had the strange name of Charles. He was the prince never meant to be king. But one day, when he was almost 12, everything changed. Prince Henry fell ill at their sister Elizabeth's wedding feast and died shortly thereafter. All at once, Charles became heir to the throne, the Prince of Wales. As the prince grew, King James began to seriously consider a wife for him. He decided on Maria Anna, Princess of Spain. But there was one problem with this. A big problem called Parliament. But here I must explain to you what Parliament is. Parliament is a group of men from all over England that help the king rule. The men are divided into 2 groups, the House of Commons and the House of Lords. The members of the House of Commons are elected men, usually from the landed gentleman class, and the members of the House of Lords were nobles. The king called these men to London when he needed to make laws, levy taxes, get ready for war, and stuff like that. So why is Parliament a problem? Well, they didn't like King James' idea about Prince Charles marrying Princess Anna Maria at all. Spain is a Catholic country, and England is a Protestant country, they said. Catholics and Protestants are enemies. Why should we make friends with Spain? And not only did they hate James' proposal, they even asked him to make war with Spain and enforce laws to punish secret Catholics in England. Well, the king didn't like their ideas either. He just gave up and dissolved Parliament, which just means he sent the men back home. But if James had given up on the idea, Charles surely hadn't. He was a man now, and he really wanted to marry Anna Maria. He decided to make a secret trip to Spain with his good friend, Duke George Villiers of Buckingham. But he was very disappointed when he got there. Charles may have been in love with Anna, but she certainly wasn't in love with him. And the King of Spain and his nobles wanted Charles to make all kinds of promises about the government of England before they would let him marry her. Things like letting Catholics worship there without being punished. Things that Charles knew Parliament would never agree to. And when Villiers got in a quarrel with the Spanish Duke, matters got even worse. The two young men ended up sailing home, with no bride. But 2 years later, Charles did finally find a wife, another Maria, Henrietta Maria, the Catholic princess of France. And, as you can imagine, Parliament was not happy about this either, particularly the House of Commons. But Charles told them not to worry. "I won't become a Catholic," he promised. "And I won't change our laws against Catholics either. Everything will be the same as it has before." But this was actually very dishonest, for at the same time, he and his father had also promised Henrietta's brother, King Louis XIII of France, that they would change the laws in England to make things better for Catholics. In that same year of the wedding, 1625, James VI and I of Scotland and England died. Now the crown of the two kingdoms rested on the head of Charles. The prince never meant to be king.